I'm here with Jeremy Morris from Jam Records. He's playing IPO today. Hi, Jeremy. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
How was the trip down from Detroit?
It was a great drive.
So how did you start in music?
I started learning music real young as a kid because my dad was a musician. He still is. He's a jazz musician, and I grew up with music
What's
in the
his name?
family. His name's Bill Morris.
Okay.
Yeah. So I just grew up with it.
Mhm.
It's just there, and I just got into it right away.
So you got more into jazz when you were growing up? Or?
Yeah, well, he was, that's what I heard. That was the first music I heard was jazz music, and then when I got, about 13, I really got, into the rock music scene.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So what was your first guitar?
My first guitar was called a Harmony Rocket.
Sears, right?
It was a cheapie.
It was a Sears.
Yeah.
Was that the one in the case of the amplifier building?
It didn't have an amplifier built in, but Harmony, I don't think they exist anymore. They're just beginner electric guitars, and
Mhm.
and it was $100, and that's all I could afford at age 13,
And when that was like 1969?
Now, yep, yeah, good call.
Yes. So when you were growing up and started playing that rock music and listening,
Yeah.
who did you grow up with? What type of bands?
Well, it was primarily at first Beatles and Stones. Those were the two main bands, the Beatles and the Rolling Stones. But a whole bunch of other bands came along after that. I mean, I started listening to everything, and I spread out. And it wasn't just rock music; it was everything.
Everything?
Yeah.
So blues,
Yeah.
R&B,
Yeah, everything.
Motown, the whole
Yeah,
shot.
yeah, the whole shot.
Mhm. And what made you start a record company?
What made me start a record company, which I started in '84, was I realized that the big labels weren't interested in the kind of music I was doing particularly.
Mhm.
And people were telling me, why don't you just do it yourself? So I did. And I didn't really know where I was going to go from there because I just started it by putting out my own music. But after that, it ended up being a lot of other bands ended up on the label too.
All right. And now, is the record companies doing more towards indie and pop stuff, kind of major labels, kind of doing it more?
They are now, yeah. But when I started the label in the early '80s, it was different. It was different times. Yeah.
A lot of money going around back then. Too.
Yeah, and they were looking for million sellers, and to me that's kind of limited because there's a lot of people that make great music that maybe it's not going to sell millions, but it still should be put out. So.
Have you ever looked into a Kickstarter project for doing something that you wanted to do, or
I
thought about it a little bit?
I have never wanted to do Kickstart ever, and the reason I don't is because I'm a record label, and to me, asking other people to pay for it in advance,
You're like a producer, though.
it seems kind of weird to me. So I'm not comfortable with it, but that doesn't mean it's wrong. Some people they like to do that,
Mhm.
but I rather just put the stuff out, and then they can buy it if they want it.
No, well, you got the label too. Versus
Yeah.
Someone who didn't have a label didn't try
Yeah.
to get their music heard.
Yeah, so I'm the anti-Kickstarter
All right.
because I'm a label,
All right.
and a Kickstarter is kind of for people that can't get a label.
That's true.
So it makes sense.
So have you, in your years and years of playing,
Hmm.
have you ever opened up for anyone big? Or who's the most noted player?
Well, see, I could answer that question
Is
and,
there any way you
and,
want?
and throw out big names, but it wouldn't. But here's the thing: we'll wait for the train to go by. Okay.
All right.
I have, over the years, I have played many festivals where there's a multitude of bands playing,
Mhm.
and the headliners have been bigger names like Scorpions or Pat Benatar.
Okay.
One time it was Weird Al.
All right.
But the thing is, it's really not a big deal to say you open for those bands because there were bands playing all day long before the main one. So it's a little bit dishonest when people go, well, guess who I opened
All right.
for? They throw out all these big names because there were maybe 10 bands that played before the
Okay.
big name played, right?
Okay, let me rephrase it then.
All right.
Who have you opened up for notably that's like only you and another band was opening for the band?
Okay. Well, this band is well known in the power pop realm.
Okay, that works.
I've played shows with bands like Paul Collins
Mm-hmm.
and the Records.
Okay, no
And,
records, yes.
and there's other ones too, and
All right.
I have to stop and think. I got up on the stage and jammed with the Pete Best band, and if you know who Pete
Again,
Best
Pete Best,
is, he's
yeah.
in the Beatles.
Beatles.
That
was in the Beatles.
was
the
in
drummer,
the Beatles.
the original
yeah,
drummer. Yes.
and that was fun. And so, and actually, a lot of bands,
He actually played here.
What's that?
Pete Best played here about 4 years ago.
Yeah, and so you know, a lot of bands I've played with over the years, but you know, when you actually do it, you kind of you don't do the name dropping stuff so much anymore
Mhm.
because you start to realize, you know, it makes it look better than it is,
All right.
and I don't want to do that, you know. So it's cool, you know. You get to play with some bands and meet a lot of people. It's a good time.
Okay, let me rephrase that a little bit more.
All right.
Okay, if you could open up or play with anyone, who would that be?
Well, I'm open for the Beatles. How's that
Okay,
sound?
that'd be good.
Yeah.
I mean, bring George out of the grave, or just
Yeah, you know, the irony is some of the bands who actually did open for the Beatles, nobody knows who they are.
That's
like
true.
the Kubas.
Ooh, that's. I didn't
They
know
opened
would.
for the Beatles.
All
I
right.
have their CD, but why am I making that point? The Kubas opened for the Beatles. How many people know who the Kubas are?
Okay, good point. Good point.
See, so opening for a big name doesn't necessarily, the stardust doesn't necessarily fall on you.
That's a good point. That's
Yeah.
A good point. So, what are you listening to now? What bands?
What type of
Generally,
bands?
generally. Yeah.
What type of bands
When
am
you
I
want to go
listening?
home and relax.
I'm listening to everything. Okay,
Mhm.
old bands, new bands. I go back and right now, what I am listening to right now, as I drove up here from Michigan to Illinois, as I listen to the Nuggets box set.
Okay. I
That's-
remember that. I had
yeah.
the albums.
Yeah.
Album, yeah.
And
Like 73, 74, I think.
yeah, and so the Nuggets box set that was put out by Rhino, and then they put out Nuggets 2, and then they put out Children of Nuggets. The Nuggets box set, to me, is like a history course in independent music, and garage music, and pop music, and psych music, and soul music, and all that stuff. It's fascinating. So right now I'm kind of in a music historian phase. I'm going back and looking at the roots of where all this stuff came from, and it's really pretty fascinating.
Right. And with your label, when you do the covers, is that cover under entertainment license, or how? Because the BMI and ASCAP and all that.
You mean if as a label, if you do someone else's
Yes.
song, it's no big deal. There's a place in New York called the Harry Fox Agency. You pay them a fee to use the song,
Okay.
and it's not as expensive as people think.
Ah.
You press a CD or LP and do 1,000 copies for one song, it's usually around $80.
That's not bad.
Not bad at all.
Good information.
I hate
Great.
the legal stuff though.
Yeah.
Hate it. I'm a musician.
Yes, there's a lot of legal stuff out there.
Yeah.
How's the kids doing?
Doing great.
Are they still playing?
Yes, they are, and they have their bands and they're touring. One of the kids just returned from a tour. He went out across the Midwest and was playing all over. So
Okay.
they're doing it. Yeah.
I remember seeing they were really good. Remember?
Yeah.
Years and years ago.
We'll bring them
myself.
back. We'll bring them back.
Okay. Well, any closing statements you want to make, Jared?
It's been real nice doing this interview with you, and keep up the good work with all that you're doing
Thank you.
in your field. You're doing a great job. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Thanks
you very
a lot.
much.
Yeah, thanks for the
Thank
interview. All right.